CENTER Maine Voice of the Voter Forum with the candidates for Congress in Maine's 1st District. The Republican challenger is Ed Thelander, a 21-year Navy veteran and a newcomer to politics. The incumbent is Democrat Chellie Pingree, who's seeking her 8th term. For the next half hour, we're going to be posing questions to the candidates, some of them submitted by new CENTER Maine viewers. We're not going to be running a clock on answers. If it takes a little longer to answer one, a little less time for the other, we'll get to cover a lot of topics. And each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. So welcome to you both. Ed Thelander, you've not held elective office before. Why start at this level instead of something such as town council or legislature to kind of learn the ropes of governing?
It was simply what I was asked to do. You know, I've served all my life. People had been asking me for over a year to run for office, and the answer's always been no. But things come to a head. They asked me again, and this time I said yes, with the support of my family.
And Chellie Pingree, after 7 terms in Congress now, are you better at this job than you were when you started? And what do you know now that maybe you didn't know on day one?
Well, absolutely. You know, one of the challenges about being in Congress is so much of what you do is based on seniority. So I'm fortunate to have been in Congress long enough to be a subcommittee chair of Interior Appropriations, also sit on the Appropriations Committee. Having that position and also having Senator Collins in that position in the Senate means that we get the opportunity to work back and forth on a lot of things, support funding needs for the state of Maine. You also know more people, you have relationships with your colleagues on both sides of the aisle. When you're trying to get something done, it really helps to understand the process well, to know a lot of people, and to know a lot about what the challenges are in Maine.
Let's talk about some of those challenges, but ask first of all, what more should Congress be doing? What can you do as a member of Congress to address the new federal regulations designed to protect right whales, but which are seen as an existential threat to Maine's lobster industry?
Yeah, I mean, all of our delegation, again, has been unified in trying to fight back against this. We certainly believe that we should not be targeted as the fisheries that's causing the right whale deaths. No right whale has been tangled since 2004. No deaths have been attributed to that. We think that much of it is related to ship strikes or some of the Canadian fisheries because of the changing patterns of the right whale. We've been fighting back with NOAA. We recently had them here in the state to have a hearing. We'll be pushing back when we hear what their recommendations are. There are court cases going on, and we're talking about proposed legislation. It's a very difficult thing to legislate, but I think we are working towards a piece of legislation that might help specifically our fisheries.
Ed Thelander, if you were in Congress right now, what would be your top priority in fighting this?
Well, pushing back against NOAA. As she said, nobody agrees with what's going on. There's no sense to it, but nothing really has been done to stop it. It keeps moving forward to the point where actually we're looking at shutting things down in the next few months. We really need to focus on the problem, and right now the problem's NOAA, and the administrator for NOAA, Rick Spinrad, is the problem, and I want to see him go away. We need to really focus on the problem, and hey, let's protect the right whale, but if we're looking at our lobstermen who are not the problem, then we're not protecting the right whale.
Americans are feeling the bite from the highest inflation levels in 40 years. Efforts by the Federal Reserve to cool things down by raising interest rates have not yet had a noticeable effect. What can you do to make a dent in this? What could Congress do? Or is this just one of those things that has to resolve itself over time?
Well, people don't like it in this district a lot, but we need to start pumping oil again. And the oil industry cannot have a threat on it that it's going to be shut down, so they, drill more and produce more. They can't build a refinery right now because there's this threat that the industry is going to be shut down. And every time there is that threat, oil prices go up. And we need to go green smart. But because I want cleaner air, I want cleaner water, I want to be able to take more fish, out of the Androscoggin River. Right now we can't, but we can't destroy the country trying to do that.
On gas and oil prices, some have suggested perhaps the Biden administration should guarantee to buy X amount every year so that producers will feel comfortable making the investment to pump more and refine more. Does that make sense?
We put it into a Federal Reserve, but why why do we have to artificially inflate it? We needed to give them the guarantee that we're not going to shut it down. We work great by letting people choose how things are bought and purchased and prices, by letting the economy decide.
Congresswoman, is part of the problem we're not producing enough oil and gas here?
Well, certainly during the pandemic, really unrelated to this inflationary period that we're in, many of the oil and gas companies cut way back on their refinery capacity. I mean, they were looking at their own bottom line and saying people aren't traveling, people aren't using gas. And so some of this is just playing catch up. And you don't turn it around overnight. Many of them are building back their refinery capacity. I don't think it has anything to do with long-term threats. The fact is, these are record-breaking profits that they're making right now. We've tried to stop price gouging in Congress and haven't gotten support from the Republicans on that. And also, most of the major oil companies are investing in renewable energy. They know what's coming next. So if they're not making investment in refineries, it's because they know the strategy is better to invest in renewables and batteries and many of the storage systems that they're looking at today.
An adjunct to all of this, of course, is Maine is looking at another spike in electricity prices because of the rising cost of natural gas, or LNG. Coming into New England. This is caused in part because we don't have a pipeline. It's been blocked by Massachusetts and some others to bring capacity into this region. Environmental groups have blocked it, but what would you do to help the situation? How can we address that part of our energy equation where we want to use more electricity, but now that's costing more because we need LNG to produce it?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons we passed the Inflation Reduction Act is so that we can make long-term investments and support states like Maine that are already looking at a broad range of renewables, whether it's wind, solar, some of the new types of power, green hydrogen, hydro energy. I mean, we need to be supporting all of those things. We're not going to have a long-term dependency on natural gas. Getting appropriate amount of natural gas into our state is important, but in the long run, we don't want to have we don't want to have electricity in this state that's either produced by coal or natural gas in the long-term future.
Ed Thelander, what do you think?
We got to get through the winter. You know, all the green energy, the solar panels that generally are not made in America. You know, we're not ready for it, and we can't charge towards the cliff until the bridge is built. You know, we don't even have a plan for the bridge yet. There's great ideas. We'll get there. It has to be done smart. You know. Again, as you said, the higher the natural gas prices, the higher the electricity prices, and we've got to get it down. We cannot jump without a parachute. Right now, we don't have a parachute.
You talked about your interest in wanting to preserve the environment and our natural resources. Do you support the spending that is in the Inflation Reduction Act, which some say is terribly named because it also focuses far more on addressing climate change? Do you support that kind of spending that's been passed?
Absolutely not. We're trying to artificially interject, you know, what they're calling green energy, but it's not yet because it's not done smartly. We cannot run towards the cliff without the bridge being built, and we have the ability to do it. We just need to encourage the industry properly and let them know that, you know, you build another refinery and it's actually going to produce a profit, because right now, there's that threat.
Chellie Pingree, you voted for this act. Obviously, you support that.
Absolutely, because you know, when you talk about making a plan or, you know, making sure we're not jumping off of a cliff, that's really what this bill does. It guarantees to a lot of the industry that the production tax credits that they have been depending on will be there going into the future. They've been waiting on Congress year after year. We renew them 1 year at a time. So making sure that they can count on that they can make those investments. I mean, we're hearing from for-profit companies all over the world that are saying, okay, now we can invest in these strategies. It's also to make sure that we can make more of these products, whether it's the CHIPS Act, where we're making more of the chips here, or solar panels, or the wood panel components, or battery storage. I mean, all those things need to be made in the United States. We can't be having supply chain disruptions. And if you don't start investing now, there will be no future. This also has direct rebates that go to consumers. It starts in 2023. And I can tell you, there's a long list of Mainers who want to put heat pumps in their house, heat pump hot water heaters, who want to buy an electric car if it's affordable. I mean, these are things that will support individuals in bringing down their own energy costs.
We've received a number of questions from viewers. This is one of them from Patty Mickelson in New Gloucester, who asks, the maximum earnings subject to Social Security taxes in 2022 is $147,000. Do you think the cap should be significantly increased to help preserve Social Security into the future? Congresswoman, you can go first on this.
Oh, absolutely. I have always supported raising the cap, and I'm most recently on a bill in Congress that would reform some of Social Security, but make sure we have more stability in the system. That would make sure that the cap stays the same, but after $400,000 in income, people would start to pay in again. So what we're saying is, if you make a lot more money, you need to put more into the system because you're going to get it back in the end.
Mr. Thelander?
Yeah, the idea and the threat, that Social Security's ending is a horrible thought, and it can't happen because we've promised these folks that are putting money into the system, they're going to get it back. And why cap it? If they're putting money in, then they need to get it back. It has to be a proper promise to them, and we need to give it back to them, and they need to know it.
But you'd be okay with raising the cap?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. We're going to take a break, be back with more of our conversation with the candidates for Congress in Maine's 1st District right after this. Welcome back to News Center Maine's Voice of the Voter Forum with the candidates for Congress in Maine's 1st District. We're joined today by Republican candidate Ed Thelander and 7-term Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. We have another question from one of our viewers, and I believe this one is largely aimed at Mr. Thelander, but it's from John Danaher, who asks, some candidates for elective office in Maine and in other states have advanced baseless conspiracy theories. After those theories have been discredited, some, but not all candidates acknowledge they no longer believe those theories. Isn't it irresponsible for a candidate for Congress to advance a conspiracy theory without first determining its validity? And I will say you have backed off on after spreading some of those, but address that viewer if you would.
Yeah, I'm talking to folks all over, left, right, and in the middle, and I'm hearing things from both sides that they're scared, they're concerned, and they want to hear something, and they want an answer to it. They're not getting it. What I heard sounded very valid. I was wrong, and I'm still asking for the information. Is it true or not? And right now, they haven't given me the information. I'm learning. I'm learning out who I am as a candidate too, and it's a wild ride to do this, and I will always do better, guaranteed.
Congresswoman Pingree, any thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the big challenges that we've been facing in the last few years, partly because of social media, partly, frankly, because of the former president who thought it was okay to say whatever you wanted on a Twitter account and not recognize the fact that when you hold one of these positions, you hold a level of responsibility to make sure that you know the difference between the truth and what's not true, and that you only talk to your constituents and you only use this position to tell people things that you know are facts. That's a big challenge in our country right now, and I think we all have to be held to a higher standard of making sure we're only talking about the truth.
Maine and the nation are seeing a large surge in asylum seekers right now, but the federal government has really not made any progress at changing the rules to allow those people who are here legally to go to work while they await their final status. What are we doing to try to change that?
Well, absolutely. We're working hard on this. I have a piece of legislation, Senator Collins has a similar piece, that would reduce the amount of time that an asylum seeker needs to wait until they can apply for a work permit. Under President Trump, it was a full year. Now we've got it back down to 6 months. I'd like it to be 30 days. When you come legally across the border as an asylum seeker, it takes quite a while to apply for your asylum application, and then you've got to wait another 30 days, or in this case 6 months, but we'd like to make just 30 days. It's also been very hard for those asylum seekers who have work permits to get a renewal. We did get the federal government, after working with them last year, to give people sort of an automatic 1-year grace period because it was taking so long. So now if you have a work permit, you're pretty much secure for the first 2 years if you've applied again. But anyway, this whole thing is ridiculous. We have people who have come to our state who are educated, who are talented, who are anxious to go to work, and yet they're not able to contribute to their own living in the way they would like to because they're not allowed to go to work.
Ed Thelander, should we be making it easier for those people who are here to get to work?
Hey, anybody that comes to this country legally, this is definitely, we agree at least partially on this, they need to be able to get to work because otherwise we're providing for them. And why not get them to work? We've got job openings. There's a ton of great people coming to this country. But what's happening now with the border is, that is not right. That flood is wrong. You cannot process all those people. We're pulling people off of our border here with Canada and sending them down to Texas and Arizona to process those folks. And they're not being fully processed. They're being pushed through. I've talked to ICE. I've talked
You're talking
to
about asylum seekers or all immigrants?
Everybody coming across the border, and a bunch are claiming asylum and families and everything else, and it's got to be done right. Those folks got on that plane in Afghanistan. That was done in such a rushed manner that only 2% were, at best, were the ones supposed to be getting on the plane.
Well, we haven't broadly addressed immigration since the Reagan administration. So as we're talking about the big picture and the southern border, as you mentioned, which is the focal point for so many people, what do you suggest? What steps should we be taking to control that kind of broad immigration?
So first, follow the laws that are in place. We're taking people in that don't have the proper paperwork, and we're giving them literally a free phone, money, and a plane ticket. To go where they want. We could send them back where they came from. We are encouraging bad behavior is what we're doing by letting the process continue. Those folks are risking their lives to come across to this great country. Greatest country in the world, hands down. That's why everybody wants to come here. But we have to have an organized process. If we don't have an organized process, we're getting a whole bunch of people that don't belong here, that are doing bad in this country, to filter through, and that has to stop, and it has to be done, again, in a logical manner, following the laws we have, talking to those Border Patrol folks and ICE agents that are doing the processing. They're being told to push people through that have known false documents, but they said, hey, I just made a copy of it and we're all good.
Your thoughts on this?
Well, overall, immigration reform is a critically important thing. As you said, we have not done this for a very long time. It's long overdue. It always becomes this political football, particularly during an election season, and we got to sit down, be honest about the numbers, and work together on this. Most of us have families. My grandfather was a Norwegian immigrant. I'm very fortunate that he was able to come to this country. I know Ed's spouse is an immigrant. We depend on the new blood of immigrants being part of the vitality of our country. We do have a lot of people coming through the border, and they are increasing numbers, but about half of them get sent back. It's a myth to say that we just open the doors and they all walk through. The last administration cut the number of INS agents and many of the personnel that we need to do the processing, and we're doing our best to build that back up. It's a big part of the appropriations process, getting enough people to even handle the paperwork and handle that. So we need to have comprehensive immigration reform. We need the workers in our state. Most of the people getting across the border today, all of the people coming legally, are either legally entering into this country or asylum seekers.
Since February, the United States has spent billions of dollars supporting the Ukrainian people in their fight against the Russian invasion, and the administration has worked to hold the NATO coalition together. Where do we go from here, Congresswoman? Can we continue this kind of support? Do we need to urge negotiations? What is it we should be doing?
Well, I think it never hurts to urge negotiations, and I think it's always got to be, something that's going on in the background. But we're talking about a very difficult situation here with Putin, really basically one person running that show without his country necessarily knowing what's going on or behind him, and doing horrendous things in Ukraine. We've seen recently he's knocked out about a third of all of their utilities. This is going to be a really tough winter for the people of Ukraine. I don't think any of us in our lifetime have seen people who fight harder for the very freedoms that we count on every day, and I think it's an important lesson to all of us. I think we have very strong bipartisan support in Congress saying that we need to be supportive. Our allies are all with us, whether it's the EU or NATO, and I'm really pleased we have this president in office right now who's helped to bring people together, all of our allies around the world, that we can get on the same page to work together on this. And I don't know when it's going to end. I wish it would end soon, but this doesn't look like it's going to be over any time.
Ed Thelander?
Now.
Well, first, we're in this situation because of the lack of respect for us overseas right now. With the pullout from Afghanistan, no military commander made that decision. And we need to get our respect back in the country. We really need to make a strong assessment of what's going on over there, because we have literally spent equal to the entire Russian military budget worldwide in one country, and we have not have a positive result. Why is that? Why aren't we looking at that? Where's that money going? It doesn't make sense. $60 billion is what the Russian budget is for the world, and we're just about there. So let's take a strong look at that. Everybody knows, hey, Putin's bad, and we need to take care of it, but what are we doing, and why aren't we having any success?
Closer to home, people in both parties now say that, many people in both parties say that democracy is under threat in this country. A lot of Americans worry about that. Do you agree with that? And if so, what do we do to strengthen this democracy and bring us back to feeling comfortable with what we have?
Hey, I'm going to say you're probably talking about election integrity, or was the vote stolen, or hey, let's look at it, right? Joe Biden's our president. He won the election, and there are a ton of people that don't believe it, that it was fair or not. So let's look at it. You know, I've been called a traitor. You know, I'm a Navy SEAL, 21 years, volunteer firefighter, reserve deputy sheriff. I've served my country all my life. And I told the gentleman that, and he asked me right away, you know, was the election stolen? I said, hey, we need to take a look at it. So the people that don't believe it, you know, or not, or, you know, just, hey, let's look at it. I was called a traitor from that man, and that's terrible. We have to stop the divisiveness in this country. We really have to take a look at things, and we can move forward. We are tearing our country apart, and it's all this crazy rhetoric, you know, around elections and raising money for people to stay in office, you know, and that has to stop.
Congresswoman?
Well, I'm very concerned about the state of our democracy, and I think it's worrisome on a variety of fronts. Certainly what happened on January 6th and the ongoing investigation, and the more we learn all the time, the role that the president played in that, and the role that many of my colleagues played in just sort of turning their heads and saying, no, that was just a bunch of people on vacation. I mean, for anyone who was there, for anyone who's watched the video in America, we know that there was an insurgency that was attempting to stop the peaceful transfer of power. That just is like a science fiction movie to America. That doesn't make any sense. Second, there were multiple court cases, something like 60 when the president challenged the elections last time, lost on every single front in every state. And so we need to make sure that in states across the country, we are protecting our election laws, and that we have to make sure that every voter has the right to vote, that every vote gets counted, that there can't be voter intimidation. We have a variety of bills, some bipartisan in Congress, to make sure we protect more of that, so that states can't overturn the lawful electors. There's a variety of things that need to be done, and I think we have to talk seriously about it. There's a lot of myth going around, but there's some facts too.
We've got about 30 seconds left in this segment. I've got a couple of questions viewers sent in that really can be yes or no, so I'm going to ask you both. First, should members of Congress be barred from trading stocks while in office?
Absolutely.
Sure, yes.
Do you support term limits for members of Congress?
100%.
No.
Is Maine's election system fair and secure?
It is, but let's look at it.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, we're going to take a break. Be back with more of our new Center Maine Voice of the Voter Forum with the candidates for Congress in Maine's 1st District. Our Voice of the Voter Forum with the candidates for Congress in Maine's 1st District is drawing to a close. Each of our candidates will have 1 minute for a closing statement. We begin with the Republican challenger, Ed Thelander.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for having me on. You know, I've served my country all my life, and I will continue to do that. I'd like your help pushing me forward. On November 8th, you definitely have a clear choice. Someone who's always served and proved it, or somebody who's really given up her vote, top 20 proxy voter of 435 members of Congress, and doesn't get things done when she's there, has not got a bill passed through in Congress into law yet. Very divisive, and I will work tirelessly. I will get things done. I'll show up for work, and I love my country. As we spoke together as a family, I will serve for 6 years, and then I want to come home to Maine, where I belong, back amongst the people.
Republican Ed Thelander, thank you so much. And finally, the incumbent is Congresswoman Chellie Pingree.
Thank you very much. I've been so honored to serve the voters of the 1st Congressional District. I would be honored to serve that again. I just need to quickly describe proxy voting. Thank God we had that during the pandemic. It allowed all members of Congress, if they had vulnerable family members, if they were worried about their own community, to vote by proxy to make sure that every vote that they needed to cast for our constituents was counted. 100% voting record. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we're back in Congress again and doing our work in person. I also have passed an enormous amount of legislation. It comes about in pieces. People rarely have their name on a bill like the Dodd-Frank bill or something else, but we all work together. That's how legislation works. You put together an appropriations bill, which I do as a subcommittee chair. You advance that through the House, and then you negotiate it back and forth. The final bill, the final appropriations bill, doesn't have my name on it, but I take pride in knowing that I've worked with people on both sides of the aisle. I'll continue to bring that experience to Congress. I'll continue to work on the issues that Mainers care about, and I will continue to make sure that my constituent staff works for all the people who have challenges and helping them in any way we possibly can. Thank you for the honor for being able to serve.
So I know I called those closing statements, but we find ourselves with about another 30 or 40 seconds. So I do want to ask you, Congresswoman, you've talked about supporting expanding the Supreme Court. Why?
I'm just concerned that we've gotten sort of mixed up in the Supreme Court in recent times. I don't approve of the process that's been used to have what I think is a fairly unbalanced court. We've had the court, and it's been larger and it's been smaller at different times. It's allowable under the Constitution, and I think this is the time to do something about it.
Ed Thelander, would it be better to have a bigger Supreme Court?
No, the folks that get, appointed to the Supreme Court, goes through a crazy amount of vetting, and the court is being used as a weapon right now, and we got to stop that also.
Thank you both. And that does it for this Voice of the Voter Forum. Join us next Thursday, October 27th at 7, when we'll host a forum with Governor Janet Mills and her Republican challenger, former Governor Paul LePage. Stay with News Center Maine for continuing Voice of the Voter coverage right through Election Day, November 8th.